Hi everyone, and welcome to Poet's Gaze. I'm Victoria, and I am so excited to be starting this YouTube channel. I have a lot to say, so I'm just gonna get right into it. First off, a little bit about me. I am a poet and blogger. I started my blog, Poet's Gaze, about a year ago to share some of my poetry and long form writing content. So anybody who's here from my blog, thank you so much for supporting me. And anybody who is interested in checking it out, I'll put a link in the description below. Writing has always been part of my life. I don't really recall a time when it wasn't. It started off as short stories when I was really young, or me writing scripts for TV shows that I was watching. And then it became songs when I was a little bit older, which then morphed into poetry when I was in high school. And through all that time, I journaled as well. But writing has really just always been a way for me to communicate my thoughts and ideas, and more importantly for me to understand my thoughts and my feelings around certain things, because a lot of the times I don't even know what they are myself. I also can't really recall a time when I wasn't struggling with OCD. Looking back to when I was younger, I recall having a lot of visible compulsions, like tapping and touching things. But then as I got older, I also realized I had a lot of non-visible, more mental compulsions as well. And at that point, it was just how I always thought about things, and it just, those thought patterns for me were always present, and I never recognized them as unusual because it was just how I always thought about things. But then about 7 or so years ago, I also found out that I had anxiety and depression. And again, there were signs looking back over the years, but because it was just always how I was, I never really thought too much about it, and I usually would just kind of write my way through whatever I was feeling in those moments. And then about 3 years ago, I started having panic attacks. My anxiety got a lot worse, and at that point, it was really evident that something was wrong. And so I started doing my own research, and I tried medication briefly, and I also started going to therapy. And so I did ERP therapy, exposure response prevention therapy. And it was around that time when I finally started to understand a bit more about my triggers and my obsessions, but then also to really see all the ways that it was affecting my life and had over the years. Around the same time, I also started making some lifestyle changes. I embraced minimalism and more simple, calming routines. But as I was developing those habits and gathering tools that were slowly helping me figure out myself and understand who I was, I also had to be really honest with myself about the fact that I had a lot of fears and triggers, and these were just kind of increasing as the years had gone on. I also came to terms with the fact that I was not fulfilled by my job and what I was doing in life. You know, I had all these dreams and goals over the years, things that I wanted to do with my life, and I realistically was just not taking very many steps, if any at all, towards achieving them, towards making them happen. And growing up, I was always a rule follower. I always did what I was told. You go to school, you listen to the teacher, you come home, you do your homework, because why wouldn't you? It really made me anxious to not do those things, because I'm like, I don't want to get in trouble for anything. I was a perfectionist. I put a lot of pressure on myself. Didn't want to do anything wrong in a certain situation, and that's definitely carried over into my adulthood. And I worked a job. I paid my bills. I paid off my student loans, and I was like, the rest will come. And I had a lot of people around me, coworkers, some friends who are like, I hate my job, but it allows me to do all these other things that I like on the side, and that's great. But for me, there was just such a disconnect of, this is not bringing me any joy, and I also am so drained and can't figure out the things that would bring me joy on the weekends or whatever time off. And so that became kind of an overwhelming realization of, I know there's other things I want to do, but how do I even go about getting there? And during this time, I wasn't really doing that much writing. I journaled a little bit here and there, especially for my therapy, but that was kind of it. But about a year ago, I finally launched my blog after about 2 years of procrastination and trying to make things absolutely perfect, which I would still be waiting on to this day for. But in doing so, it became really evident to me that I needed to do something creative with my life. I loved writing, and I just had so many ideas and I wanted to pursue them. So last October, I took out a small loan and quit my job, and I decided to take a little bit of time off through the winter holidays to just write and be creative. And I started sharing my writing on Instagram, and I really just wanted to use the time to figure out what I wanted to do next, knowing what I had learned about myself at that point. And then on Thanksgiving, my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And I think had my dad not been so calm about it, for one, and also had I not begun my mental health journey a few years prior like I had, I would have been in a much worse state to handle it. You know, it still was not good, but I think at that moment I was the most equipped I had ever been in my life to handle something like that than ever before. But my dad's been going to treatment, and in the months since Thanksgiving, I've felt a massive shift in my perspective on life, something I think I was kind of dancing around prior, but which was definitely solidified since. And, you know, I've written about getting older and time passing before in my poetry, but this made me feel it in a way that was no longer just peripheral or from a minor stance. I've thought often about how everything we do, every day that we go about our lives, is really just a distraction from death. And I know it sounds like a very sad thought, but it's actually been very freeing for me to think of things in that way, because all of the things that I worry about that feed my anxiety and my OCD, they're just thoughts, and they're not real, but they've stopped me from doing so many real things. In the past few months, when I've been talking to friends, I've had quite a few of them say things to me like, oh, I wish I could do this, or I would love to do that someday. And my response to them is always like, go for it, do anything that you think might make you happy. And that's how the idea for this channel was formed. This is me trying to take my own advice, to overcome my fears, to stop letting things hold me back, to stop avoiding things, to reach all my dreams and then find new ones. Life is short, but our world is only as small as we make it, and that's what I hope to use this channel for, to reconnect with my world, to hold myself accountable, to discover all of the beauty, the magic, the poetry in the world, and to build a community of like-hearted people. Thank you so much for watching, and if you'd like to follow the rest of my journey, please like and subscribe. Talk to you soon.